Write that down for me, Saito. Write that down for me, Saito.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Write That Down. I am one of your hosts, Justin Knipper. I work over at Fight Game Media and F4W Online at WrestlingObserver.com, and I'm back with Mr. Fumi Saito, Japan's leading pro wrestling author, historian, and broadcast journalist. All right, so today, Riki Choshu Part 2. Today, we went over Choshu's career from around 1984, during the Jump period when he and his faction Ishingun jumped from New Japan to All Japan, and we talked about Japan Pro Wrestling. We also spoke about Choshu's match with Jumbo Tsuruta, All Japan 60-minute draw. We talked about 1989 when Choshu moved into that booker manager position behind the scenes, and we also talked about his creative genius behind the G1 round robin tournament. That was his baby. That was his creation. Oh, also, we almost forgot, but we didn't. We talked about the Akira Maeda incident in 1987. Very important. All right. If you have not already done so, please subscribe to the Fight Game Media Network on Spotify or Apple or wherever you are listening to your podcasts. All right, let's get into Riki Choshu Part 2.
Japan Pro Wrestling in September of 1984, you had people like Shinichi Nakano, the Eigen Haruka, the Masanobu Krisu, the other veterans, they were in the mid-card in New Japan. They joined, and all of a sudden you have 15 guys leaving New Japan. At the time, 1984, if you remember, that was the year the original UWF started.
Ah, that's right. That's right.
And then Akira Maeda, Yoshiaki Fujiwara, Nobuhiko Takada, that little bit initially Russia Kimura, the big heel, right? That before he ended up joining All Japan, that a little bit, Russia Kimura and Go Ryuma, people like Gran Hamada was part of original UWF too. Wow, how many people did they lose that year? That New Japan, they lost about 30 wrestlers. That was also, and I'm talking about 1984, that was also the year that later on Three Musketeers, Keiji Muto, Masachi Ono, and Shinya Hashimoto, they all came to New Japan Dojo. Very interesting year, huh?
Very, very. There, at least in Japan.
And Liger was first-year rookie. Yeah, the Liger as Keiichi Yamada, he was first-year rookie, along with people like Sano, Hata, and the 15-year-old Masakatsu Funaki was at the dojo too. And the following year, Asai, Yoshihiro Asai, Ultimate Dragon couldn't debut with New Japan because they consider him too short, right? But 85, 86, he was practicing at dojo and living in dojo. Very interesting era. But when I asked this Keiji Muto the question, it's like, were companies, like a big earthquake hit, right? Like, were they shaken up? Like, are you losing, all the star wrestlers, like 20, 30 wrestlers all together? And Keiji Muto's answer back 35 years ago was very interesting. I asked him personally what were they thinking, right? It's like, Muto said, well, then we'll be on TV right away. Great. That's how wrestlers think. The company's going to last. Right? That's how, losing UWF 10 guys, right? Original UWF, they left. And Riki Choshu and his group, 15 guys left. And you have Skelton, back to Inoki, Sakaguchi, Fujinami, Kengo Kimura. And George Takano Cobra came back from Calgary. Yeah, that's a little odd. That Junji Hirata came back from Calgary and become super strong machine. And that's a good, and then Hiro Saito came back from Calgary too. But that's still 3 or 4 new guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they made those guys heel to challenge company, the same Ishingun Riki Choshu method. But interesting, the young lion Hashimoto, Muto, Chono all thought, oh, great, we'll be on TV right away.
That's
interesting way to look at it, huh?
Very.
Yeah.
Before Choshu moved back to New Japan in '87.
New Japan, right. Yeah.
Before we move on from that, I know there are a handful of important matches that Choshu had, like really quite important matches.
One and only single match against Jumbo Tsuruta. 85 at the Osaka Joe Castle Hall. Riki Choshu, Jumbo Tsuruta. They only met once on a single match occasion, just once. 60-minute Broadway. Yeah.
How was that viewed? Was that viewed as kind of like a dream match at the time?
Oh yeah, very much dream match, but reading oriented, meaning like the kind of wrestling fan that reads all the wrestling magazine every week back to back, that they predicted 60-minute draw. How else can you get out of this, right? Double count out, such a letdown, right? Or double DQ, very much let down.
There were a lot of those at around the time in All Japan.
Still, yeah, because Giant Baba being very conservative booker producer, right? You don't want to harm your superstar, or you don't want to tell Jumbo to lose it. You don't want to tell Riki Choshu to lose it. And actually, Riki Choshu Tenru single match program clicked much better because they did it so many times and all the matches were good. And styles were similar. It looked like Jumbo could manhandle Riki Choshu at the time.
He was a lot much taller, bigger, taller, yeah.
And heavier and great wrestler, and then Choshu later on admitted that he had a complex because personally he believed Jumbo was so much more talented than he himself, And yeah, because wrestlers sometimes arrogant, but sometimes very humble as an athlete. Because when you get in the ring or you watch what they do, you could tell this person's talented than more talented than I am, right?
And they're both Olympians, so they have high standards of themselves and of each other.
Yeah, and then they respected each other, but all things considered, they ended up having half-ass 60-minute Broadway. But if you watch this match, 37 years later, it's a good match, But at the time, people expected a little bit different, like Riki Choshu clothesline, Jumbo 3 or 4 times, and Jumbo's big body takes big bump, or you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it wasn't as dramatic or action-packed.
Or spectacular, because that was more Jumbo Tsuruta style match. He was so used to doing 60-minute Broadway match, which he had done against Dory Funk, Harley Race, the Jack Briscoe, Billy Robinson. Oh, wow, he'd already done that 60-minute match many times. And I don't believe Riki Choshu had 60-minute Broadway experience up until that point, which he never did again,
Yeah, and Choshu
he's not the kind of 60-minute wrestler.
No, he's an explosive wrestler who he has a couple big moments at that, or a couple moments in a tag match, but the matches themselves, the big ones at least for him, I don't think the Tenru and Choshu match at the Tokyo Dome was very long. It was like barely 10 minutes. 92.
Yeah, 93. But you felt like you watched, classic.
Because that kind of everything he did not just had a meaning, but he went 110% behind.
And high impact too.
Believable.
Yeah. Whereas Jumbo Tsuruta is more, Dory Funk, Harley Race school of wrestling.
NWA style.
Very, very slowly,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then save the big spot until the last 10 minutes of the match or something. Very old-fashioned. So it clicked in different way because it showed the difference. If you have educated eye and go back and watch this, match from 1985, I think we both enjoyed that match much better than I did then. Yeah. Because I'm then also 37 years older now that I have different eyes for wrestling, So that there's a videotape of it. So it's something that you can study. But I'm not sure if they really enjoyed the moment, that much. It's wrestling, so none of these guys are losing, right?
No way. And that was kind of not a problem, but it was definitely a pattern in the mid 80s in all Japan.
Yeah,
with all the
because
big stars.
Jumbo Tsuruta wasn't about to lose, and Riki Choshu, the big, huge superstar then, there was momentum. He wasn't going to lose. And yeah, that's probably why they only did it once,
Mm.
And tag team situations, at the time, Jumbo and Tenryu was still tag team. Tenryu in babyface side, and just about every night on the tour, Jumbo, Tenryu, and maybe third person, a 6-man tag team situation, and Riki Choshu and either Yatsu or Kobayashi or
Hamaguchi.
somebody like Teranishi or Hamaguchi. Yeah, and then the Riki Choshu's trio working against All Japan trio like pretty much every night. So actually Jumbo and Riki Choshu were in the same ring just about every night, but they only had maybe 2 spots against each other each night.
Right.
Yeah. But all through the year. But it was an interesting test because some people were critical about in the early 80 version of Riki Choshu that he is not as versatile, meaning that he can have great single match against people like Fujinami and Inoki and very limited among Americans, right? But when he worked against people like Dory Funk, Terry Funk, or Harley Race, or of all people, like, can you imagine having a match against people like Dick Bockwinkel? It was tag team situations. But, this Ric Flair against Riki Choshu NWA World Title match happened. They had the picture perfect Scorpion Deathlock that Riki Choshu putting on Ric Flair. The picture perfect, great. But Riki Choshu at the time didn't think it was a very good match,
Mm.
And because he ended up doing Ric Flair match.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And also he admitted that he started out with Aoyama. They say Aoyama meant New Japan, meaning that when he was with New Japan office were in Shibuya, Aoyama area. So Riki Choshu used to call the office Aoyama. Anyhow, so I grew up in Aoyama, so I don't know how just like how big of a deal NWA World Title match was, and I didn't know about it. And something like that. So NWA is always the concept that the All Japan really polished and cherished. That it's the biggest world title and the closest thing to undisputed World Heavyweight Championship, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas New Japan and Antonio Inoki created IWGP to conquer that, right? Mm-hmm. That the whole philosophy was there, and Riki Choshu was in the middle of it. He had to say something like, "Yeah, I didn't know how great NWA World Title was," or something like that. But he was in the All Japan cluster for the next 2 years, and when you're in All Japan situation, yes, you'll have that you'll meet all the All Japan wrestlers, not just Jumbo and Tenryu, but the Tiger Mask Misawa at the time, all the like American stars that are actually taller and heavier than Riki Choshu himself. You know what I'm saying?
Did he ever have a singles match with Bruiser Brody around this time?
I was gonna get to it.
Okay.
They not a single match situation, but in actually the year Riki Choshu and his guys came and started working full time with All Japan. 85, okay? That was the year Bruiser Brody himself, all by himself, switched side to New Japan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And only once in the grand opening of this Ryogoku Sumo Hall, that the main event was Road Warriors against Jumbo and Tenryu, International Tag Team title, the grand opening of Sumo Hall. And Bruiser Brody was openly vocal about not being the main event on such a epic date, that the new opening of new arena, the brand new Sumo Hall, Sumo Arena, Sumo Palace, I should say, that Bruiser Brody was not in the main event. He was not happy, right? And the tag team, Riki Choshu, and I cannot remember, I believe it was Yoshiaki Yatsu, and the opponent was Bruiser Brody and Killer Tim Brooks. Okay, so it's a tag team situation. That was like also very interesting to see Bruiser Brody not letting Riki Choshu do his stuff on not one bit, you know.
He was much bigger.
And then Big Boot, you know, he gave Big Boot to Riki Choshu's face. Match itself was, I believe, Riki Choshu pinned Killer Brooks with you know, your clothesline, or Riki Choshu finished Killer Brooks, you know, with his scorpion. I just like the finish, the whole sequence slipping away. I cannot remember, you know, but all I remember was that Bruiser Brody didn't let Riki Choshu do a thing, and that's how I remember, you know, how most people remember. And Bruiser Brody made sure that was the last night he worked All Japan. Then he walked out. Then Inoki against Bruiser Brody program starts in New Japan side. And pretty much with the skeleton, you know, the roster, Bruiser Brody in a lot of ways saved New Japan that year. Isn't that interesting?
It was a busy year. It was a wild year.
Yeah. And then just within 1985, Antonio Inoki and Bruiser Brody had 6 single matches, all big super, you know, arena type matches. Not one clear finish. It's so 1985, huh?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, because it's a business happens, and you have, you know, every time Inoki and Bruiser Brody had a single match, you always have more than 10, 15,000 people, you know, big business, right? And you would think Inoki would beat everybody. But I guess with this single match program against Bruiser Brody, either Inoki get DQ'd or Bruiser Brody get DQ'd. And one time there was double count out and there was no contest. And you know what I'm saying? Not even the count outside the ring. Not one finish in these 6 single matches. But they did it. But after Bruiser Brody left, it was the program Stan Hansen against Riki Choshu in All Japan ring. Interesting, huh?
Is that where he got the lariat? So when we started using the lariat with Stan Hansen?
No, 82. 82 was New 82, Japan.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah, we talked about it because Riki Choshu was basically a mid-card Japanese side wrestler who took Western lariat clothesline from Stan Hansen the most. You know, so just at the end of 81, Stan Hansen leaves and joins All Japan, right? So that was just as soon as Stan Hansen left New Japan, it was Riki Choshu's finish. Riki Lariat.
Riki Lariat, that's right.
Was born. Interesting, huh? Oh, because they take care of people's finish. You know, if it was Western Lariat, you know, left arm, I should say, clothesline of Stan Hansen, that nobody messed with it. You know. Then now that the Stan Hansen left and joined the other side, which is All Japan, it became Riki Choshu's signature move. Well, they took care of that tradition. And yeah, now it's the superstar Riki Choshu switch side and come to All Japan and his faction. And superstar Riki Choshu's clothesline against American superstar Stan Hansen's Western Lariat. You know, the Lariat against the Lariat. In 86, following year, Riki Choshu beat Stan Hansen to become PWF heavyweight champion. Pacific Wrestling Federation, you know, now the part of that Triple Crown. Excuse me. But he was criticized a little bit by, you know, like more in fans that there were 3 single title match, single title championship, right? International heavyweight title, you know, of Jumbo Tsuruta. UN, United National Heavyweight title, held by Genichiro Tenryu. Then in the Pacific Wrestling Federation heavyweight title held by Riki Choshu. 3 single championship, you know, kept by 3 different superstars. Who is the best? And it's like, that's so Giant Baba's, you know, school of, you know, Giant Baba booking, that giving each of 3 belts to 3 different top guys. But that's like ended up, you know, not having a real true top guy. You know what I'm saying?
NFL Sunday Ticket is now on YouTube and YouTube TV, which means that it just got easier to be an NFL fan, even if you live far away. Like maybe you like the Bears, but you're hibernating in Panthers territory. But with NFL Sunday Ticket, your out-of-market team is never more than a short distance away. Specifically, the distance from you to your remote control. NFL Sunday Ticket, now on YouTube and YouTube TV. Go to youtube.com/presale to get $50 off.
Terms and embargoes apply. Offer ends 9/19. No refund. Subscription auto renews.
What's up? It's Kaylee Cuoco. When it comes to travel, we all have a happy place. I just went to my happy place. I just went to Maui, and it was truly amazing. Priceline has always been about getting you to your happy place for a happy price with deals you really can't find anywhere else. Like up to 60% off select hotels in Costa Rica or 5-star hotels for 2-star prices in Cabo.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
Yeah, when you make a guy in the promotion one top single superstar like Roman Reigns is right now, that you don't give other guys, belts, And it was almost confusing that by each having three different singles championship that made them equal, but equal doesn't work in wrestling, does it?
Well, especially around that time, a lot of these guys were hitting their peak points in their careers. There were a lot of big stars.
But same year, yes, in '86, Riki Choshu and Yoshiaki Yatsu finally beat Jumbo and Tenryu to become international tag team champion. Yeah, he held that tag team title until Riki Choshu left All Japan again to rejoined New Japan.
Mm-hmm.
In spring of 87. Yeah.
And this is when Masa Saito joined him in New Japan, right?
Actually, in '86 until in the spring of '87, he was in jail in America, in Wisconsin.
When did he end up back with New Japan?
'87.
Yeah, after spring?
Yeah. Actually, he looked like part of Riki Choshu's group, right?
Right.
But actually, Masa Saito was the only genuinely freelancer with under no contract. He just came back from AWA.
That's right.
Like the dying days of AWA. He got out of jail. He wanted to brush up a little bit in the work dates with All Japan, but he felt like he wanted to come back. And also, that was the year Antonio Inoki started having this Inoki Live at the Osaka-jo Hall, that Sumo Palace, that celebrating Inoki's 30 years in business type of deal. And Inoki's special opponent was Masa Saito. That year alone, '87, including the Jungle No People match, Inoki and Masa Saito had 4 important single matches, all big house. And also, they needed Masa Saito because technically Riki Choshu, the Kuniaki Kobayashi, the other, Riki Choshu's group could not legally work New Japan until October of '87. They were still doing, right outside the guardrail with street clothes and teasing, making a run in. And that was as much as they could. If they put on the wrestling gear and get on the ring, you'll be sued. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So they did what they could do. And yes, Rookie Hiroshi Hase and Masa Saito, those two were not under contract. Therefore, they could start working with New Japan right away. Therefore, Masa Saito against Inoki, the main event of IWGP tournament that year, Rookie Hiroshi Hase seconding it, and Riki Choshu and his guys in street clothes sitting right outside the barricade. Interesting picture, huh?
Kind of reminds me of the, like an NWO or...
Right, very similar. Yeah, because it's a wrestling storyline and it's an angle, but technically you could legally get sued by very smart lawyers, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And usually not much of wrestling people, but Channel 4, All Japan Pro Wrestling, Channel 4 is very angry that the way Riki Choshu walked out on contract. Yeah.
How many more years or months were on it?
I think like if they don't terminate the contracts, that'll automatically extend or something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah. It basically Riki Choshu and his 7 other guys walked out on it. Yeah. And expecting that somebody will take care of it. Inoki will take care of it, right? Yeah.
So 87, some of the group is back with Choshu, but mostly it's Choshu is. How was he perceived? Was he more of a heel?
Still Ishingun, because he will not be part of Inoki and Fujinami establishment. You know, his thing. Riki Choshu always had his guys with him, and he'll always work against the company establishment. He will be challenging Fujinami again. Will be challenging Inoki again, right? And yeah, so that was this basic image of Riki Choshu, always on his own, And it will be another year or two until Riki Choshu actually shake hands with Inoki in that ring.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But these 85, 86 2-year period was, pretty important that, Riki Choshu and his guys actually switched side and worked All Japan. So Riki Choshu and his guys became one of the very few groups that worked both groups under Inoki's, watch, under vision, under Giant Baba's, supervision, like a completely different philosophy in the way you run wrestling wrestling business or wrestling shows or the dressing room itself.
No one no one had that experience at the time. It was very unique
at the time, right?
To them.
Probably the only person who worked both sides was like I said, Umanosuke Ueda and probably Hiro Matsuda. That's it. Yeah, but they are special, though Umanosuke Ueda and Hiro Matsuda were considered Japanese wrestler, but they lived in America, so it was a little bit different. And not everybody came back, the Yoshiaki Yatsu choose to stay with All Japan and became, under contract All Japan wrestler. Yoshiaki Yatsu, that the Killer Khan didn't come back, Isamu Teranishi didn't come back, Haruka Eigen, Shinichi Nakano, quite a few stayed. But then Rookie, who started with All Japan, I'm talking about Kensuke Sasaki, was Rookie then, but he came back to New Japan. Not coming back, but he debuted with All Japan, and he was Japan Pro Wrestling wrestler. He joined New Japan with this version of Riki Choshu, Kensuke Sasaki and Hiroshi Hase. Those two are Rookie then. Yeah, interesting, huh?
Sasaki would become kind of like the protege.
Yeah, much bigger star than people thought. Yeah,
and he would kind of dress like Choshu, had the same hair.
Same stump.
Yeah.
And not tall, but real stocky, like a
more like Kenta Kobashi's build.
Yeah, and then the way he lift weights every day, and the way he practice and work out 8 hours a day every day, and because he was really, really dedicated, and more like. See, he had a little bit of complex too, because his rookie mate was a former Olympian, that golden rookie Hiroshi Hase, and Kensuke in college graduate, and also taught in high school for 1 year, and Kensuke Sasaki joined Riki Choshu's group right out of high school. He was in judo, but never national level. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And what he needed to do was just work very hard to get what he wants, Yeah.
He was always kind of circling around the Three Musketeers.
Yeah, because they designed that the Three Musketeers, Muto, Hashimoto, Chono, were like, they were designed to be the top guys, huh? And Kensuke himself, of course, knew he was gonna get there, but took him a little longer. Yes,
87, 88, Choshu's back in New Japan, but this was also when Inoki was kind of wrapping up his...
slowing down. Yeah. And also the rise of Big Van Vader era.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. See, that people talk about this, Sumo Palace riot, December of 1987. That was the night Big Van Vader debuted and beat Inoki in just 2 minutes or something.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, the lineup they announced previously was final meeting of Inoki against Riki Choshu, right? And they were going to switch that to Riki Choshu, Inoki against Big Van Vader. And people booed that thing, that the beat Takeshi, and that the TPG, Takeshi Pro Wrestling Gundan, taking over New Japan and TB Asahi, this big angle that they came up with. That was the time that the All Japan was switching that the World Pro Wrestling to give up Made Matenai, that the variety portion of pro wrestling program that people hated so much. And they did this pirate, which people hated so much. They run in and, destroy the match and run off, right? If you remember the Billy Gasper, the parts unknown pirate from some Caribbean or something that the people didn't buy. And this pirate guy destroyed Inoki against Masa Saito match too. And Big Van Vader was part of this, that the new package deal that they were going to create Monster, which they did. But this December 87 version of Big Van Vader wasn't quite ready to, to be on that, on that spot. But the booking is a booking. This debuting Big Van Vader beat Inoki, who was this avalanche power slam in 2 minutes. But people are not happy, so they had to have Inoki against Riki Choshu too in the same night. Inoki ended up working twice. You know what I'm saying? That's like chaos, don't you think?
It scared. It was so bad. It scared Kitano away from pro wrestling forever.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think so because wrestling fans are crazy.
But that was unique though. That was, if anybody's seen.
Yeah, but what was bad about this, Takeshi Kitano thing? He left the building without watching the match.
Oh, so it was just his reaction to how the people
wrestling
reacted.
world, because he felt that he was used, But they had Riki Choshu Inoki single match that night, right? Like a couple matches before Inoki Big Van Vader match. But what they gave people was 6-minute DQ match. Oh, that got people mad even more. Yeah. Like Japanese wrestling fan will boo the match not because you hate the heels, but they boo you when they don't like what they're watching. How's that?
They think it's bullshit. They think it's
but that's how messed up or that the things were out of control that night or that period. That it was obvious that Inoki was not in his prime anymore. But you have to keep in Anthony Inoki, the producer, the director, the owner of the company, the top guy that you feed everybody, right? But they had to start dealing with the reality that night Inoki chose to do the complete job. You gonna start this Big Van Vader guy. I'll show you how to do the job, right? That Inoki is so creative that they took this rather green Leon White and got himself beat in 2 minutes. The monster was born that night, right? Then 88 January tour on, Big Van Vader was on every single tour, like working full time. Then about working about a year, he became like the biggest, the best big man worker of the era and of the era, I think. But yeah, 88 pretty much was the last year Inoki worked the full time. In 89, he ran for public office and won the election and became parliament. Yeah, so he didn't have to retire, but he actually won the election, national election, and got about little less than 1 million, but like 990,000 vote, and then he actually was elected into the upper house parliament. Big deal, right? But that was 1989, the beginning of 1989. The election was summer, but he withdrew from wrestling schedule as of like January, February of 89. That's when Inoki gave the booker job, the booker position, the exclusive, the executive producer, they call it, but the
Kantoku.
basic, to Riki Choshu. You would think Inoki would give that position to Fujinami, right?
Exactly.
I mean, that was the hierarchy, right? Instead, Inoki chose Riki Choshu over Fujinami, apparently, because he was jock and the locker room leader, and I think Fujinami was a more artist and athlete, and on his own, that he is not the right person to run the entire locker room with 45 guys.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Riki Choshu, whereas Riki Choshu was the type of guy who lived in the fraternity house,
He's
animal house.
I think he probably got a little more respect backstage just because of,
or he can yell at guys and make them keep their mouth shut.
like you said he was a scary dude, just in general.
But just the energy, he just walk around, he's not gonna hit you or yell at you or anything, but the aura or the air that he generates, that you don't want to bother this scary guy, the big jock, and I'm sure that was new to him, that he never ran. But running dressing room is one thing, but giving finish, this is wrestling, right? Yeah.
I mean, he was coming from the complete, like you said last week, he wasn't coming from a pro wrestling fan background. He didn't care for it. He's from the sports side.
But he became professional wrestler.
Sure.
1989 version of Riki Choshu already had 17-year experience in professional wrestling, seen it all, done it all, though, and the summer of 1989, he came up with that later on became G1 Climax, but he ran 3 consecutive nights at Korakuen Hall. Was never done then. The 3 consecutive nights at Korakuen Hall. But now they do. The today's New Japan run 2 or 3 consecutive
like
days.
4 sometimes.
Sometimes. But 1989, like running 3 nights, consecutive nights at Korakuen. So you gotta be doing something very special, for people to come back 3 consecutive nights, right?
Mm.
But he did that. Then that 1980, that became 7 consecutive nights at the Korakuen. That was also Riki Choshu's idea. 7 consecutive nights at Korakuen, though. You got to do something special, right? But that was 1990. Then that became 3 consecutive nights at Sumo Palace, in the first inaugural G1 Climax, 1991. Then that became tradition. Every summer, G1 Climax. His booking philosophy is pretty, simple, like very athletic. Not much storyline or betrayings or somebody backstabbing somebody, or he had none of that. It was more of a wrestling competition and clean finish. Remember, start having all the clean finishes in New Japan around 1990.
Yeah, it's funny because he had so many matches in his career where there were no clean finish. There was nothing.
Because the finish was given by someone else.
Right. But he did champion the sport realistic type of approach, but also, like you said, he was kind of setting the calendar too for the company, which I don't think it was as involved as it became in the 90s when they were running Korakuen 7 nights in a row.
Yeah, 89, 90. Then that became G1 Climax in summer of 1991. And also, we need to point this out that at that point, Riki Choshu was the only, Japanese single wrestler who beat Inoki 1-3 in the middle of the ring for 3 times. Fujinami never beat Inoki, in single match situation. So people took Riki Choshu was the guy who took over the company. Really. because you have to do that in the ring. This is wrestling, work and everything, but the winning and losing has to mean something, huh? I mean, it has to, though. I still believe that today, that the winning and losing, or putting somebody over or doing jobs, this is different, term, different word for it. But the result of the match should matter. Don't you think?
Of course. Everything should have consequences if you're going to be watching it every week.
Or the meaning of it, yeah. And 1991 inaugural, the very first G1 Climax, that the Riki Choshu, then a very creative booker, right? He lost every single tournament match that year. Interesting, huh?
It's a very different style than...
Yeah, and then not selfish. And also he showed that to the audience, showed that to the locker room. This is how you do it. The match was interesting between like a single match, between Riki Choshu and Bam Bam Bigelow. Bam Bam Bigelow was so happy that night to do this. Did the diving headbutt off the top rope and the splash to cartwheel to the whole 9 yard and beat Riki Choshu in the middle of the ring, 1, 2, 3. And then he really showed the whole locker room this is how it was going to be done from that point on.
You know what?
Therefore, yeah,
I'm coming. It's out of nowhere, but I just realized something. We skipped over a very important part of Choshu's career in '87 with Maeda.
Right.
I think we should before we move on to the '90s.
Yeah, yes, right.
We should rewind to '87
because
forgot about
when
that.
we talk about Akira Maeda and his, decorated career, yes, we always have to talk about it because it led to the reopening of second version of UWF. The November of 1987, the Korakuen Hall, yes. 6-man tag team situation. Riki Choshu, Masa Saito, and Hiro Saito, okay? One team. And the other team was Akira Maeda, Nobuhiko Takada, and Osamu Kido. 6-man tag situation. Riki Choshu putting Scorpion Deathlock on Kido, I believe, that out of nowhere, Akira Maeda walks into the ring and kicked Riki Choshu's face from behind. Boom. And it makes funny sound. I was there like 20 years away. And yeah, that was interesting. Not interesting, but people thought it was an angle. It wasn't, And then President Seiji Sakaguchi suspended Maeda right away. Then a month later, he actually got fired from New Japan. But Riki Choshu was the one telling that, no, don't let him go. Only those two know what really happened that night. Interestingly enough, later on, Razor Ramon, Scott Hall was watching that moment from the ramp too.
Wow.
Yeah, and then also that same year, 87, that the spring of 87, we rewind it, okay? IWGP was not a title yet. That after this tournament final was between Inoki and Masa Saito, okay? And Inoki naturally beats Masa Saito. Then they introduced new finish too. Saito suplex, right? The big suplex backdrop. That Inoki turns his body and avalanche him. People do that now a lot, but that was the first night they introduced the finish. Masa Saito was going to give perfect Saito suplex. In midair, Inoki turns his body and avalanched. Both wrestlers take big bump and covers 1, 2, 3. Wow, that was very fresh finish. That now they do that a lot, but that was very interesting finish. That Inoki beats Masa Saito for the tournament final, and that night IWGP becomes the championship belt, becomes the title that to be defended. Then you think that was finale, that the final moment of that night. No, Riki Choshu walks in, with microphone and say, challenging the establishment, that the big huge angle of new leader and now leader, all the existing faction gotten broken up. At the time, there was like a 4 dressing room, Inoki and the company New Japan dressing room, right? And there was a Riki Choshu, the Choshu Gundan dressing room, then UWF dressing room, then American dressing room. 4 dressing there was. But just by doing one big angle that night, all the faction got destroyed. That the new leader, the Riki Choshu, that the Fujinami joins and Maeda joins, all the young wrestler joins, and challenge the establishment. Now leader that Inoki and Sakaguchi and Masa Saito joins that part too. And that was a big, huge angle, like that all the existing faction in the group no longer, and now it's the younger guys against older guys. There was a very exciting angle that night. And again, young Scott Hall watched the whole thing and turned that into NWO a decade later.
That's very interesting,
isn't it though? Oh, because the Scott Hall was not, we're not talking about Scott Hall that much today, but Scott Hall was a serious student of professional wrestling all the way. And he witnessed that new leader, now leader angle. He witnessed that the shoot kick done by Akira Maeda on Riki Choshu's face that night. Scott Hall witnessed the whole thing and thought it was big angle. Wasn't. And yeah, he was there like Forrest Gump. That's what I'm talking about.
Like being there with Peter Sellers.
Oh yeah. Oh okay. Right. People thought it was like when we talk about it, people just like Tom Hanks, Forrest Gump in interesting moments of history, But let's talk about that sometimes, again. But right, we could not skip this 1987 spring, that big angle right after the finale of IWGP tournament, that the IWGP becomes the heavyweight world championship that to be defended. Then that shoot kick thing happened, and Maeda gets fired from the company, and following spring that the UWF starts again. Then that's another subject for another day, because some of these serious UWF followers and fans believe that they were going to change professional wrestling into legitimate contest, the professional sport. That later on ended up becoming what we call MMA today, but another portion of history. But the Riki Choshu stayed with his company and became sole booker after Inoki left, and it was completely Riki Choshu era. Well, what's interesting is though he still kept this rebel image of it, but actually he was a guy who was running the dressing room. Isn't that interesting?
I don't know if it played into how people perceived Choshu after it happened, but listeners out there should need to realize that this kick, it wasn't just a frilly kick. It broke his orbital bone. It broke his face.
And then Riki Choshu's face for next 2 months.
It was swollen
up. Oh,
it looked horrible.
But the Riki Choshu only 2 weeks, 3 weeks later told people to not let Maeda go. Yeah.
It's interesting too, because when we bring up Maeda and Choshu, they were both very popular at the time, but they really were on different paths. They were like on the opposite sides of the road when it came to pro wrestling. Yeah. And Choshu is the polar opposite to what Maeda was doing. Choshu was doing. He was wrestling traditional pro wrestling.
Mm-hmm. But he revolutionized a lot though within the wrestling frame.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And Maeda was the one who was going to outside of pro wrestling, because you had to make professional wrestling a legitimate sport. You know what I'm saying? Or being MMA. They don't.
They were different approaches to being realistic or legitimate.
Yeah, but decades back, both were in New Japan Dojo. Isn't that interesting?
Mm.
Yeah, Maeda, Riki Choshu, Fujiwara, or Hamaguchi Yatsu, all these people for that matter, every single one of them worked out at Noge's New Japan Dojo one time or another. All the way to today's Okada, Naito, Tanahashi era, they were all there, But so I think Akira Maeda and Riki Choshu were kind of close. They were friends, but they were thinking about two different things, and they had two different plans. They had to go separate way, huh?
Two different visions, we could say.
Yeah. But that's as realistic as you can get in wrestling, because we talk about work and finish of pro wrestling, but what they do and how they want to, to move forward as a professional, that's pretty real. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It reflected the everyday life more too than as opposed to maybe 10 years before that, when it was kind of like watching an action hero versus a monster.
Now today's 2022 wrestling is more of a Game Boy to me.
It definitely at times. I mean, it depends on where you are and what it is you're watching, but a lot of it, it's just a different rhythm.
Yeah. Well, I'm talking about things that are from 30 years ago now.
That's right.
Yeah. And this 1989 version of, Booker or Kantoku Riki Choshu, more of an establishment, but he was veteran. Then you have Three Musketeer there already becoming main event. G1 Climax as a tool, like a vehicle. The Muto, Hashimoto, Chono, or probably Hase and Kensuke Sasaki for that matter, they were becoming superstar on their own. And Riki Choshu was there to defend the company. I mean, so it's like the whole circle, of it. Very interesting.
So we can fast forward back to the early 90s now, because
G1 Climax,
Climax, and you talked about Choshu working with guys like Chono and Hashimoto, who when I think of
Hashimoto
Choshu,
and Choshu match,
I think those. I mean, maybe they weren't big parts of Choshu's career, but they were huge parts of Hashimoto's career and Chono's career. So,
because as much as it was just like Choshu wanting to beat Inoki, back in 80s, but it was now it's Hashimoto and Muto and Chono who had to beat Riki Choshu and Fujinami to get there. Yeah, completely new generation of it. Yes, it was very, very interesting. Yeah. So this because there's no Inoki there, and Fujinami took a few years off with his bad back. And the whole landscape within New Japan changed. Yeah. So of course Choshu, hit 40s, and but it was also Tokyo Dome era that in Inoki's days, running 10 Sumo Palace show was a real big deal, right? And the Choshu's era, you'll be running 2 Tokyo Dome, Fukuoka Dome, Nagoya Dome, the Osaka Dome is like a dome-sized building with, you got to pack 50, 60,000 people, and it will be doing a different thing. And Masa Saito came back to Japan to live full-time, and they signed a deal with WCW to be partnership. And now all kinds, WCW people, including people like Ric Flair, start appearing in New Japan ring. Big production. It's 90s.
I don't think I ever saw Choshu show up for WCW during that time.
He traveled, but he never worked the show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. Masa didn't work the show either. It was time for Liger, the Otani, the Tenzan, Nakanishi. Yeah, they wanted to have these guys have experience in American soil and a bigger, bigger production, because WCW was like the major league of professional wrestling. I mean, not as popular as WWF until NWO and Monday Night War era, but still considered very big league, right? Around that time period, you can find that footage. Inoki worked last American match in WCW Clash of Champions, if you remember.
Regal?
Yeah. Antonio Inoki against William Regal. Stephen Regal.
Lord Stephen Regal. Yes.
Yeah, then Inoki wanted to have him as opponent to have his kind of match.
Wow, that says a lot
about Regal.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's a lot
what
of
kind of
respect.
opponent would be the perfect opponent for aged Antonio Inoki
Yeah.
to shine?
I think
Yeah.
that's a
And
great
the stage
point.
like Clash of Champions.
You could do a little mini version of the Billy Robinson match.
Yeah, right. And wrestling match, which is he also had to showcase something completely different from what WCW TV will provide you every week. I mean, different kind of wrestling. It had to be.
Mm.
Inoki was, plain black in trunks and black, wrestling boots, kimono jacket, and he's like a politician from Japan, and he's a bigger than life superstar, having very special match, Clash of Champions. That he wanted to have Lord Steven Regal for his opponent to have his kind of match. That was interesting, but that was another subject for another day. And Riki Choshu had traveled to America, but he never really worked. Another footage from way back, like '79, there's a Sakaguchi and Riki Choshu working WWE Madison Square Garden ring against Jojo Andrews and Bad News Allen. And
That's on WWE Network. That's right.
Network, yeah. And then then play-by-play announcer Vince McMahon, younger Vince McMahon, kept calling him Koshu.
That's what fun fact for Shingo Takagi fans out there. Wasn't that what his initial
He
name
wanted to be a
was?
Riki Koshu, yeah, right, because
Riki
it's an old
Koshu.
name for Yamanashi Shizuoka area, yeah. Right.
Wordplay.
Shingo Takagi wanted to name himself Riki Koshu, right?
He was very much like a next incarnation in a lot of ways of Toshu.
Pretty much.
You see a lot. I see a lot of
clothesline guy, huh?
Intense, jock, loves to train.
Pretty much. And longer hair in the back.
Kind of a mullet.
Yeah. Oh, he still has mullet to this day. Yeah. A wrestling hairdo now.
Sure.
Right?
But early 90s, aside from the G1, he was also still headlining with New Japan.
Yeah, but didn't make him sole top wrestler. He wanted to his plan initially was 5 Top Gun. Was like a 3 Musketeer, Muto, Chono, Hashimoto, and Hase and Kensuke. So it's a 5 Top Gun. And Fujinami and Riki Choshu will remain as more of a senior main event guy, not necessarily, coming at the end of the night, but still very special, like Ric Flair of 90s.
Sure.
Yeah.
Kind of like a special attraction.
Yeah, so pretty much because it's the same Riki Choshu's Ric Flair, same generation, right? Almost. Yeah, it really hit me because Riki Choshu right now, today, 2022, he's 70 years old. Riki Choshu being 70,
It's a weird thought.
The image of him is still running around and doing the clothesline with long hair, right? But the guy's 70.
The spirit is the same. Whenever he comes out onto television or makes
he is Ric Flair, yes. I mean Riki Choshu all the way, yeah. And unintentionally funny on television, yeah.
So 96 was a special year because that's the year that he won the G1.
Yeah, and the last time, right? Yeah. And well, we can wrap this episode up because he retires in January 4th, Tokyo Dome, 1998. Actually, 3 months before Inoki's retirement, he decided to, put this wrestling boots, once, he returns 2000. So he retired really. Well, I'm sure he meant it, at the time. He was going to retire in 1998, but yes, he did come back in year 2000 and had 19 more years. The actual real retirement was 2019. So he worked another 19 years, but wasn't with New Japan. It's like that wrestling's dark age hits, and he quits New Japan 2003, and there was ill-fated, short-lived Double J World Japan Pro Wrestling. And he came back to New Japan a little bit, but he worked places like Hustle, and he had, he worked Tradition Date in a smaller company like a Real Japan Pro Wrestling, and then pretty much started to work in different companies And yeah, because New Japan was sold to Ukes and later on Bushiroad, and he wasn't part of New Japan anymore. But the Riki Choshu was Riki Choshu, and he had like a third career, right?
And he's still kind of living it right now. He's in the middle of it, this third career post.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. So 1998 on, we'll talk about the third portion of Riki Choshu's legacy next time. Yeah.
And we should talk about the 96 G1. We'll start there, 96. Right when he...
Okay, 96 to 2019 or to this day?
To this day, I guess, because every other day.
I said was like he was most influential professional wrestling figure of last 30 years. No, last 40 years. Yeah.
And we got to talk about, there is that connection from him to Sasaki to stars from today like Katsuhiko Nakajima. There's that connection. So he still has he's still a relevant figure in Japanese pro wrestling. He just showed up at Tokyo Dome this year for New Japan as a guest.
And also when he became New Japan booker for the second time, that's when people like Shinsuke Nakamura and Hiroshi Tanahashi was rookie, young lion. So that connection is there too. Oh, he had hands on all the different generation then. And
we can't forget to mention around this time, next week we'll talk about it, but the Onita match, he even did a death
second
match.
Incarnation of Riki Choshu Tenru program. They did that. Yeah. And 40-year program of Fujinami against Choshu all the way till like 2019. Yeah,
they were always they never
kind of like a Ric Flair Dusty Rhodes single match or Steamboat or something like that. Yeah, or the Sheik against Bobo Brazil. See, when I was a kid, I did not understand how could Sheik against Bobo Brazil in Detroit could last 30 years. Now I understand. Yeah.
Rivals are important. Yeah, we'll talk about that next week when
rivals are important. And I believe they are good friends because they respect each other so much. Yeah.
Okay, so where can listeners find you online?
On Twitter at Fumihiko Dayo, Fumihiko Dayo, Fumihiko Dayo on Twitter, or find me Fumi Saito on Facebook. Message me first.
And I'm at Justin M. Knipper, Knipper on Twitter. Next week, we'll do part 3. We'll wrap up the third tier of Choshu's career. So until next time, Fumi, take it away.
So long from Tokyo.